Washington calls us backwards. They look down on us. Well, Washington can get bent.
Voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah. It's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
John, every time I hear that, I think I'm listening to KEZK back in the old days when it was beautiful music. KEZK.
I loved their jingle, Brad. KEZK is today's easy listening. It reminds me of sitting with anxiety in any given doctor's office. You know, you got a cold, you got to sit there, the receptionist is hacking herself.
Yep.
And you got KEZK on.
You got it, right. And you got Life magazine and Time magazine to read and things like that. Remember, those are the good old days.
Absolutely.
Well, we have to jar ourselves into the 21st century. We have to jar ourselves into the 24th year of the 21st century. Or is it the 23rd or the 25th? I don't know how they do that. Anyway, it's 2024. It's the day after the debates, which we have to decide if we're going to talk about that or not. But what we do is, this guy by the name of John Combest, and boy, do I have a story about John Combest today. John Combest, Combest, his website is johncombest.com. He puts together a list every single day of all the stuff going on in the state of Missouri. And as my person that I talked to on the phone for almost an hour yesterday, who I can't say who I talked to, who is running for a statewide office, said, you know, it's like the Drudge Report for Missouri, which was the quote of the day. And I go, yes, it is. So we start this show off with what the very free top 3 episodes or whatever. What do you call it? Entries into the johncombest.com
site?
Let's
call them an entry.
Entries.
Sure.
And we bring on the Polka Boys.
Time for the John Combest top 3.
And of course, they give the European pronunciation of Combest, not
hey,
Combest.
It is Scottish and Irish.
Okay. John, Casey's coming along. He's here right now. Walked in the studio. Casey, take it away.
And here they are in third place.
Speaking of bloggers, Brad, we're going to go from the right, and then on number 2, we're going to go to the left, and then for number 1, we'll go in the middle. So let's start with the right, and we're going to start with a blogger, a venerated blogger that got his origin right here in St. Louis, Jim Hoft, the Gateway Pundit. Brad, there's a story I have up today from The Guardian, which is in the UK, and it's about Jim Hoft and the Gateway Pundit. Now, most folks remember Jim. He started a website, probably 15, maybe 20 years ago, called the Gateway Pundit that links to it does a lot of I shouldn't say it just links to stuff. He does a lot of actual original reporting. He has Victor Nieves write some stuff for him. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. Jim Hoft has been sued by some folks in Georgia. Jim Hoft had stories after the 2020 election about alleged election fraud that took place allegedly by 2 Georgia poll workers. And those workers are suing Jim Hoft for defamation. Now, what Jim Hoft did was his company, I believe on April 24th, I think it was, on April 24th, the Gateway Pundit filed for bankruptcy. Now you say, John, why would he do that? Isn't the site making money? And the answer is yes. According to the folks that are suing Jim Hoft and his company are using the bankruptcy process. They're misusing the bankruptcy process to protect Jim Hoft and his company from these lawsuits. So I have the story up today, Brad. It's going to be curious to see how this happens. According to this piece in The Guardian, which is written by a gentleman named Sam Levine, does that name ring a bell at all, Brad?
It does. Why would I know that name?
Because he used to write for one of your favorite publications, the Riverfront Times in St. Louis,
Oh,
Brad.
no kidding. Really?
Yeah, he did. He did. Actually, Sam did a really good job. He wrote, allow me to self-indulge, but it's a personal anecdote. He wrote a story back in the Monsanto days on a technology called neonicotinoids. Companies use certain pesticide as seed treatments. And Sam wrote a piece that was super critical. I think Sam had already left St. Louis at that point, but he wrote a that was super critical, but it was thorough and it was accurate about the technology. Anyway, but that's this gentleman's connection to St. Louis, along with Jim Hoft's connection. So what the creditors are saying essentially is that they point to some other things that are going on within the Gateway Pundit business that show essentially that the business is thriving and that Jim Hoft is using the bankruptcy process to avoid financial responsibility, I think is what the allegation is. So we'll see how this turns out.
Well, you know what? As a person that's once upon a time took the LSAT. Actually, I took it twice to become an attorney, and as one of my friends has said to me one time, I've been in courtrooms more than some attorneys have been in.
That's true.
That's his prerogative. You know what I mean? I mean, he's got, just because someone comes after him, he can put up whatever defense he wants. And matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think that what's his name? Why do I have these blank spots? I got these holes in my brain.
You know why? Because you know that President Biden beat Medicare, and you're on his same medication, Brad. That's why you have holes in your brain.
I think that must be the case. The Alex Jones, I think, is going through the same thing where he's trying to shield his assets through bankruptcy. And quite honestly, the crazy thing about it is there used to be a guy here in St. Louis, T.J. Mullen. I don't think he's still around.
Oh, I remember that name. He was an attorney.
Well, here's part of the funny part of it is the interesting part of it was at the old KSLQ, we're in the 111 South Beamiston building, okay? And the building had a lot of very high-class tenants, not including the radio station. We were like low-class. But what was interesting was we would be in the elevator, and people would walk in, and we would take one look at them and go, T.J. Mullen's office? Yeah. 4th floor, jump on the elevator, we'd take them there. I mean, they had a certain look about them as they were walking in to declare bankruptcy. But once again, I mean, companies use this. I mean, Donald Trump has used bankruptcy several times.
All the time. And I think, but Brad, I think one of the challenges is, and I'm not sure because I haven't seen Jim Hoft comment about this piece, but I know this was the case at one point. I believe even the rapper 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, declared bankruptcy and then went right on social media and let everybody know that it was a ruse. If I was declaring bankruptcy, I think I would sell it. Like, wouldn't you really want people to believe that you were destitute?
Yeah, you
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
You go to Goodwill and get some shirts that have some holes in it, and
Yeah, well, I mean, I do that, and I'm not bankrupt.
Okay, a little bit of history of Jim Hoft. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he buddy with Dana Lash, and didn't he start out as?
Yeah, and they might still be. I don't know the extent of what their relationship is, but they were both on 97.1, right?
I don't. Well, he was from time to time, and you know what? And nothing against Jim Hoft, but this is like emblematic of you've got radio guys who do sports and you got newspaper guys who do sports, and rarely do the two ever cross because of the fact that you've got all the guys on ESPN 101 who have these beautiful voices, and then you got the reporter from the Post-Dispatch who comes on and let's go with Jim Smith from the Post-Dispatch. Yeah, that's right, guys. In the 10th inning, it was a real ball
I thought
buster.
This was your criticism, your perennial criticism of Jim Hoft's brother.
Oh, well, he was on Tracy's station, and quite honestly, he was BADDD. I mean, he was boring as hell, and once again, that was Tracy's whole thing. She hated radio people. Remember I told you the story? Tracy, you know what? I haven't had a cease and desist letter from you in a while. Go ahead, call your attorney, get that letter going. Anyway, Tracy had this thing that she hated radio people. I had a meeting the last time I ever met with Tracy and Rick, got in a little bit of a skirmish with them where Rick said, we don't trust radio people. They're all horrible people. So when they originally went on the air, all the people on the air were not radio people. They were all bloggers and Facebook people and, you know, and YouTube stars and things like that. And most of them sucked on the air. You know, they were just terrible. You know, it would sort of be like, here's the interesting thing. It would sort of be like, if Fox News was still run by Roger Ailes, it would be like one day Roger Ailes saying, you know what, I don't want all these beautiful blonde women with these gorgeous legs sitting on the on TV with their their CFM pumps. I want radio news people on my TV station, and you'd see all these fat guys and gals, with T-shirts and baseball caps backwards, and that's the radio crew. Get what I'm saying, John?
I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah, they have the proverbial face for radio.
Right. Okay. We're on to number 2. Here we go.
Up a notch to number 2.
From the Post-Dispatch, Aisha Sultan. And most people mispronounce her name, Brad. If you listen to the Post-Dispatch propaganda, they actually call her Aisha, not Aisha. So let's get that straight at the beginning. Aisha Sultan. The headline today is, what a Washington University faculty vote, chancellor, and board response reveal. And Brad, this is an important follow-up to a conversation we had 2 days ago when you mentioned hearing Tim Fitch on Mark Reardon's show talking about the WashU protests.
Right.
And I was unaware of what Washington University was going to do with the protests. And in fact, Brad, the Washington University faculty took a vote on some resolutions that we've discussed here before about what to do. Aisha Sultan's point in this whole thing, she has the breakdown of the vote. And the first resolution, which was to drop all charges against these protesters, that failed, Brad.
Really?
So the faculty itself voted against the resolution to give these protesters a pass. Now, Aisha Sultan's point in all this is that she has the breakdown of how the faculty voted. I guess the university made this public, or at least Aisha had access to this information. For the schools on the main campus, so think of what most people consider the main WashU campus, the voting, she says, wasn't close at all. And that the idea of giving those protesters a free pass and dropping the charges passed overwhelmingly. And she points out that most people that are on the main campus or that work at the School of Social Work are pretty liberal. However, Brad, you'll be interested in this. The folks from the faculty, or the faculty at the engineering and the business schools, overwhelmingly voted against giving the protesters a free pass. In other words, they led the charge to say, hey, the folks that came here and protested and trespassed, we want to charge them. So, Brad, that resolution passed by a vote of two. I should say the business and the people and engineering people who said we need to prosecute these people, they won, Brad. They won by 2 votes.
Did the medical people? I think
it's pretty interesting.
Did the medical people vote? Because they're off campus as well too. They're in the hospital complex. Yeah, they did too.
And she has the breakdown here. Yeah, that includes the medical school faculty voted 327 against the 245 in favor. And I know that this gets a little confusing about a for and against, but in other words, the folks in the medical school joined the folks in the business and engineering school. And if you had to stereotype, you could say they voted conservatively, in other words, to prosecute the protesters. Now, Aisha doesn't have any details here in terms of what next steps are. Aisha's writing more about the philosophical difference and what it shows on campuses and among kind of echo chambers.
Now,
but that's an important follow-up, Brad, because you brought that up the other day and I didn't have that information.
Right. And as Tim Fitch said, I think he made a very interesting comment. He said he doesn't want the police department being used as bouncers. And I thought to myself, wow. I mean, that's a great quote because you think about it. You know, if you go to a bar, what's the bouncer do? He's there to, first off, if you become an obnoxious drunk, he's there to essentially say, hey, you know what? I don't think this is the right place for you. And they're supposed to talk you out of it. And then if you don't pay attention, you get grabbed by the scruff of the neck and by the belt loop and you go out the front door. You know what I'm saying? And
I do know exactly what you're saying.
So which I thought, once again, this crazy stuff was Columbia, where they, don't get me going on this. I mean, they took over the building, they damaged the building. Let's make the parallels. Okay, let's make the parallels. And I'm not, because this was talked about last night in debates. Let's make the parallels with the people that invaded the House of Representatives, and let's make the parallels with the people that invaded Columbia University. Okay, they both took over the building. Some of these people, are still in jail, have yet to have their day in court, whereas the students at Columbia, you guys, we'll give you a pass. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad, but, what am I to say? I mean, you know what? I say all the time.
What do you say that, Brad?
I'm an expert on, guess what?
Oh, you're an expert on a lot of stuff, Brad. What is it?
I'm an expert on nothing, but I'm an expert on hitting buttons, and I'll hit this button right here, and Casey will say...
The number one...
A huge event. While Brad was down at Queer Rights at the Missouri History Museum, most people were paying attention to the presidential debates. Now, uniquely, Brad, via MissouriNet, and I have a link up to this today, the only members of the congressional delegation, it appears, that put out statements about the debate were Republicans. It turns out Cori Bush, it appears, did not make a statement about the debate, and it appears as though Emanuel Cleaver did not make a statement about the debate. If they did, they're not included in this piece from the MissouriNet. And I think that the highlight here is that my favorite quote, Brad, that you'll be most interested in comes from Congressman Eric Burleson from the southwest part of the state. And his comment about Joe Biden was simple. Maybe he should have had some Mountain Dew.
Whoa. Who said that again?
Congressman Eric Burleson, pointing out that President Biden was a little sleepy, was a little slow. Maybe he should have had a little bit of Mountain Dew.
That's like something I would say.
It's like something you would say. And are you a diet Mountain Dew guy, or are you a Mountain Dew guy?
Well, you know what? I have to be honest with you. I'm a matter of fact, I'm sitting right here with my bottle of Mountain Dew. Some people have coffee. I am one of these. There's 3 different kinds of soda that I really like. My favorite is Mountain Dew. My second, it depends. The problem with Sundrop is you can't find it all over the place. It used to be only out in Franklin County and Warren County and places where
I've never heard of Sundrop.
Oh, you never had Sundrop before?
No. Is it like Mountain Dew?
Oh yeah. But sometimes, to me, it tastes better than Mountain Dew. And my third choice is, and once again, you can now find this at some restaurants on the fountain, is Mellow Yellow, which is Coca-Cola's product for Mountain Dew. It's like the ripoff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have Schnucks, which has a really good ripoff soda called Mountain Lightning, which is pretty darn good.
Are you serious? It's called Mountain Lightning?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact,
wow.
Well, see, talking about things that increase in price, when Schnucks, see, I have to be honest with you. Schnucks has a really good plain label, list of foods. I mean, they have some really good stuff, and I buy a lot of the plain label. Their Red Ball Schnucks stuff, whatever you call it, has their logo that's just Red Ball with Schnucks in the middle of it. And they came out with a whole line of sodas right when the pandemic hit. And at the time, you could buy one of those refrigerator packs, one of those, chipboard double layer packs that you tear the front off and the sodas roll forward. You know what I'm talking about? I think
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think it's I don't know if it's a 12 pack or a 24 pack. I think it might be a 12 pack. You could buy that for $2.99. It's doubled in price. It's now $6. I mean, you talk about stuff that's increased in price.
I doubt. I heard last night there's not much inflation, Brad. I heard that from a reputable geriatric.
Not much inflation. So anyway, yeah, but I'm surprised he said that because, they claim that Mountain Dew has so much more caffeine than the average soda. I guess that might be true. But remember this bizarre story we talked about it a couple months back where Panera, St. Louis Bread Co., came out with some super caffeinated thing and a couple people died from it. Remember that crazy story?
Yeah, too much caffeine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, the heart gets pumping.
And you know what? I mean, most injuries from Panera come from people calling it Panera and not its proper name, which is Bread Co. Because if you call it Panera around me, you might get a broken nose.
Well, in the St. Louis area, it depends on where you're at because the ones that, like the one in O'Fallon right there in Highway K is now Panera, but the ones in the city of St. Louis are still St. Louis Bread Company. So it doesn't make any sense. John, there's a huge elephant in the room which we didn't talk about. Do you want to talk about that the next break?
There's an elephant. Well, I think if you drink enough soda, Brad, and don't take diabetes medicine, you'll turn into an elephant. But no, I don't know what it is. Does it have to do with you annoying people on Twitter?
No, but no.
Okay.
But it has to do with.
I thought that's what you wanted.
It has to do with something that happened last night. And by the way, I did.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, the thing down at the History Museum. I didn't know if you were going to go or not. I mean, all your friends were down there, and I figured that, your absence. You know what they say, Brad? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
John, did you hear my my newest drop?
Nope, I'm here.
Did you hear my newest drop?
Oh, did I hear it? No, what is it?
Washington calls us backwards. They look down on us. Well, Washington can get bent.
They can get bent. You know what I'd like to do in the commercial break? I'm going to look up the origin of get bent because I don't know what the origin of that is. Maybe it's a welding reference.
Maybe we don't want to know, right? Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?